Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay. You guys know I'm not real big into mass media, but I do use it sometimes to share things or stories with you. I found this very interesting. It's from WFLA news station. Clearwater police officer accused of public corruption. You guys know there's always a fall guy, right? So I'm going to play a little bit of this, and then I'm going to comment on my opinions about it. And I'm by no means, you guys, am I a law enforcement expert. Like, not at all. I'm just going to voice my opinions about what I think about it.
Anybody not ready? All right, good afternoon. I'm Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri, and here with me is Clearwater Police Chief Eric Gandy. And we're here today to announce the arrest of Clearwater Police Detective Frederick Lease. Lease was arrested earlier today on 8 felony public corruption charges because Frederick Lease decided to cross the line from being a law enforcement officer to being a criminal. And in doing so, he dangerously endangered the lives of real law enforcement officers trying to rid our community of deadly drugs.
Always watch their faces.
Police corruption, fortunately, happens very rarely in Pinellas County, but when it does,
I highly doubt that.
It's going to be met with very harsh consequences. Lease faces felony charges of misuse of public office for the unlawful disclosure of criminal investigative information and unlawful use of two-way communication devices. He was booked into the Pinellas County Jail with a bond of $200,000. As a Clearwater police officer, Lease was assigned to the agency's narcotics unit. He's also the...
Is it just me, or does $200,000 seem really like a low amount of money? I would think it'd be like at least $1 million.
The president of the union that represents Clearwater police officers.
Wait a minute. Let me put that back.
I'm going to explain what led to Lease's arrest today and Chief Gandy of deadly drugs. Police corruption, fortunately, happens very rarely in Pinellas County, but when it does, it's going to be met with very harsh consequences. Lease faces felony charges of misuse of public office for the unlawful disclosure of criminal investigative information and
so that's where they got him, text messages.
And unlawful use of two-way communication devices. He was booked into the Pinellas County Jail with a bond of $200,000. As a Clearwater police officer, Lease was assigned to the agency's narcotics unit. He's also the president of the union that represents Clearwater police officers.
Listen to that, you guys. He was the president of the union.
I'm going to explain what led to Lease's arrest today, and Chief Gandy will speak about Lease's employment history with the Clearwater Police Department and union involvement with the agency. On July 24th of this year, we held a press conference and announced the arrest of 13 individuals on drug trafficking charges. Those individuals...
No child trafficking charges for anyone, though, is there? Real ones, it's just so... What is it called? As the web we weave or something?
Individuals included Matthew Turner and Henry Smith, two people on the board next to me underneath the photograph of Lease. The arrests that we announced back in July resulted from a year-long investigation that included an undercover Pinellas County Sheriff's Office detective making drug purchases from the Turner drug trafficking organization.
Okay, again, I'm not an expert in law enforcement in any shape or form. But you guys do understand that with all the drug dealing throughout the United States, it's not allowed to make as much money as it is for no reason, right? You guys got to read between the lines. It's my opinion.
This organization was obtaining significant amounts of drugs from a source of supply in California and distributing the drugs throughout the Tampa Bay area, especially in St. Petersburg. The evidence shows that from August of 2023 through July of 2024, that this Pinellas County-based drug trafficking organization, of which Turner and Smith were two of the primary participants, obtained and distributed about 220 kilograms of cocaine, 660 pounds of methamphetamine.
Those are interesting numbers, aren't they? 220 kilograms, 660, 66. Ooh.
25 kilograms of fentanyl, 5.5 kilograms of black tar heroin, and 14 kilograms of MDMA. That's about $3.7 million worth of cocaine, $990,000 worth of meth, and about
$990,000. 99 is an inverted 6, isn't it?
about $750,000 worth of fentanyl. And I recap all that is because what you're going to hear about how lease enabled them to do what they did. Now, because this drug trafficking organization operated throughout the Tampa Bay region, we coordinated with other police agencies during the course of our investigation, including the Clearwater Police Department. At one point, Detective
Clearwater.
Police was explicitly told of our investigation regarding Turner and Smith, while our detectives were attempting to learn information from other law enforcement agencies about the Turner drug trafficking organization. We also know that in his position as a narcotics detective, Lease had access to confidential law enforcement databases where he was able to watch for.
I find that really interesting. I mean, I guess it depends on what post you have in the police department or sheriff's department or whatever department you're in. But he had access to a lot of data. I find that kind of interesting.
And then search for individuals under investigation by other agencies. Lease placed an alert in that system regarding Turner and Smith so that he would be notified if there was an investigation being conducted into their activities by other narcotics units, including the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
My personal opinion, this is just my personal opinion. Do you think this guy was able to do all of these things just by himself? I mean, it's just my opinion.
We know that in March of this year, while this investigation was ongoing and active, Lease received an alert based on information that we entered and then further searched the database regarding Smith and Turner. Lease then contacted, once he found out about this information, Lease then contacted a Pinellas County Sheriff's Office narcotics detective to obtain more information about our investigation of Turner and Smith, and then told Turner.
So he kind of gave himself away. That's going to put you on the radar. Not the brightest in the bunch.
And Smith, that they were under investigation and that they were in trouble. In a text message from Smith to Lease, Smith asked Lease to get more information and stated, I quote, "See what you can find out if you can. You got me worried."
This is just a general statement. And I'm just thinking, aren't these supposed, I say in quotations, you guys know, these drug cartels or whatever you want to call them, aren't they always under investigation? Inquiring minds want to know.
Lease, in replying to Smith, said, and I quote, "I hit up one of my boys. I told you it's either someone is talking or you slipped up with an unknown." Now, the person who is...
That must have come from an informant or some type of, what do you call that when they record you, the wire device?
referring to as one of his boys is a Pinellas County Sheriff's Office detective. And what Lease told Smith in his reply was that either someone was providing information about him and Turner to us, or that he had sold drugs to someone that he didn't know who was working with law enforcement. At one point, Lease also told Smith, and I quote, "I got you, bro." And Lease later told Smith that Turner specifically was being investigated for trafficking in a substantial amount of fentanyl.
So somebody's turning on each other, but I know the little that I do know about drug dealing and that, you do really have to be careful when you start turning on people, because you might not make it out alive.
Now, one of the things that they cooked up here and kind of concocted, and you're going to have to follow me with this for a second, is once Turner and Smith realized that we were investigating them, they're in trouble, but obviously their greed took over because you can see the volume of drugs that were involved and the amount of money that was involved in this thing.
Greed. Greed. Doesn't that remind you of Scientology, where little 4- and 5-year-old children are locked up in little rooms, made to keep their hands on the table, not move for hours, and asked or given questions to ask grown adults extremely detailed, sexually explicit questions to grown men or women? Greed, trafficking under the guise of religion. I guess when you have a fake religion, it's okay to have greed. It's okay to traffic.
Is they decided to keep doing what they were doing because to them, I guess, the reward outweighed the risk. But they concocted this scheme with their buddy, Detective Lease, that Turner and Smith were going to go out and try and buy drugs. Now, they're selling tons of drugs, but they're going to go out and buy drugs from somebody that they know and set that person up with a lease so that they would be acting as informants, if you will, for a lease. And they could get credit later on for setting this person up ahead of time.
Is it just me, or is this guy stuttering a lot? I mean, I'm sorry, I just don't trust a lot of law enforcement anymore, which is unfortunate, because I know there are a lot of good law enforcement officers out here busting their butts trying to do good work, but we live in an extremely diabolical, evil beast system. And people that have a lot of money and a lot of power, we do have a lot of missing children throughout the world. People in high up offices, I suspect, do not let or allow good police officers to do good work. Rest in peace to Officer Tipping, who was investigating fellow LAPD officers for gang-arring a woman, and then he turned up dead in a training accident, which, I'm a veteran. You don't have a lot of training accidents in the military, so you guys do the math.
Time so that when they got arrested, that they could say they were working off charges with lease and that they would get what we call substantial assistance or good time off of their sentence. So this is a preemptive strike on their part with lease, and they all concocted this little scheme to go.
Okay, this is off topic, you guys, but I just have to because I'm a smart mouth. Isn't it interesting that it's always, like, whether it's the police, whether it's the politicians, whether it's the CEOs of various companies, whether it is, I don't know, what else? City commissioners. Isn't it interesting that it's always old white men? Clearwater, Florida, I don't know that much about Clearwater, but I do know that Florida is prevalent and has a lot of very high Hispanic community. Why aren't there Latinos or melanated men of various Latin cultures represented in these agencies? Totally off base, I know, but let's just keep it real.
Out and Turner and Smith buy drugs from somebody, do it under the auspices of lease, and lease would then go out and arrest these people, and Smith and Turner would get credit for setting them up for getting time off for what they were doing that Lisa was helping them out with. So it's a pretty elaborate scheme that they're talking about, and it is, say, reprehensible to say the least.
Schemes. Schemes. Clearwater Police doesn't know anything about schemes? What was the guy in office during I believe it was the early 90s? And all these calls were coming in for child trafficking in the Scientology buildings. There were several neglect cases, hundreds of 911 phone calls made from the Harrison Ford Hotel. And you know what happened? You know who helped the children? Listen. Nobody.
And it just shows where their mindset was and how extensively they were scheming with each other, including Lise.
Sorry, guys, the more he talks, and this is my opinion. This is my opinion. I have no evidence or factual data to prove what I'm saying. Somebody got mad that they weren't getting their cut. I'm not saying it was the police officers, but something funny going on. It sounds like a turf war.
Now, during another text message exchange, Lise told Smith, so this is the detective telling the drug trafficker, when the time comes, you know I got you all, and I'm handling yours now, but Matt, who is Matthew Turner, Matt got to wait. Well, what that refers to is what I just told you, because Smith was out trying to set people up so that they could stack all of that to get him credit, and then he's going to work with Turner to do the same thing. Lise also told Smith, quote, I'm solid, always have been, which he's telling him that he's got their back. Lise also had in-person meetings with Smith and Turner where he disclosed detailed confidential information about our drug trafficking investigation. And this is information that he knew only because of his position as a Clearwater Police narcotics detective, including the investigative techniques that we were using during this case.
Wouldn't you guys love to know what those investigative techniques were? I know I would.
And this investigation involved the use of wiretaps, and Lise told Turner that his phone was being listened to by law enforcement, which caused Turner to switch phones during the course of the investigation.
That's drug dealing 101. What was that? Trying to remember what that show was that I had. I think it was called Wired. It was about all the wars between drug dealers in, what is it called? Baltimore, Maryland. That was actually a pretty good series. Very upsetting to me. You know, I'm Caucasian. I've never been in that world, and I didn't understand what all went on. It is evil. But it gave me some really good insight into what really goes on. Very, very evil stuff. So the things he's saying just kind of, it seems weird to me.
It would cause us to have to chase different phones and get additional court orders because he said...
That's what I was thinking. I remember when I watched that series, and like I said, I've never been in this world, but they're notorious for using all kinds of burner phones and that they can't be traced. So why would you have to tell like a higher level drug dealer this? Like they already know that. Duh. So that's what seems weird.
He kept switching phones based on the information that he was getting from Detective Lise. Now, this information that Lise disclosed to Turner also caused them, meaning Smith and Turner, to detect surveillance, physical surveillance that was being conducted of them, and this also frustrated our investigation. At one point, during an intercepted phone call between Turner and Smith, Turner asked Smith when the last time was that he had talked with Lise, because Turner said that he has seen surveillance, and he stated, I quote, I'm taking stuff into the house, and here comes the helicopter.
Huh. This is kind of off the mark, but I'm just being sarcastic. You know, Scientology has a lot of surveillance. Maybe they could have helped you. Got a lot of money, too.
In another call, Smith and Turner discussed the ongoing information they had received from Lise about our investigation and that they should have left town, with Smith telling Turner, and I quote, like for someone in his field, meaning Lise, who's a cop, a narcotics detective, like for someone in his field to say, get on a plane, get the F out of here, you know what I'm saying?
From my experience, I'm not saying these cops are 100% legitimate, in my opinion, but he does seem to be authentic to me. Like a lot of the things he's saying seem authentic by the intonations in his voice and that. That's my opinion. You know, it's like they said, it's a something web we weave, like a. Anyways.
Now, one very troubling aspect of Lisa's betrayal of his oath, the trust, his job, is that by
the betrayal of the oath, the trust of his job. What about the betrayal of the little children in the little rooms in Clearwater that are being audited right now, that never gave their permission? It was against their will. They're being subjected to sexual abuse, which actually asking grown men or women explicitly sexual questions is sexual abuse in and of itself. They are being falsely imprisoned in little rooms. A lot of them are sent to the child RPF or punished independently, sent to rooms with infested with rats, mice, or other insects, made to lay on the floor without a bed, with just a dirty blanket, not allowed to change their clothes for sometimes weeks because they're being punished, fed the last crap from all of the Sea Org members and other staff members. They get the last of the food. Why can't the children get any justice for their betrayals? Why can't the children trust in police officers and other agencies to help them get out of their situations? Why can't the parents that are allowing the abuse to occur be held accountable? Why can't Scientology be arrested or tried in court for all of the crimes against children they are committing right at this moment that we speak? I want to know. So you're talking about honor, trust, betrayal. What about the children in Scientology?
By disclosing to Turner and Smith that they were under active investigation by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, Lise put the undercover detective at risk when he purchased significant quantities of drugs from this drug trafficking organization on 9 separate occasions during the course of the investigation.
Okay, I don't want to play the whole entire thing, but I just, my point is, what about the children in Scientology that are 4 and 5 years old being made to sign billion-year contracts? What about the 13 or 14-year-olds that right now are being recruited into Scientology, whether their parents give permission or not, recruited, signed staff contracts, which is all illegal, by the way, oftentimes given over into these guardianships in which the people that have guardianship over the children do not do their guardianship/parental duties. Nobody does their parental duties. Why isn't the betrayal of trust for the children in Scientology important? Why is it okay to betray the children that are supposed to be protected by law enforcement, by government agencies, by various agencies, by Child Protective Services, Immigration Naturalization Services, Congress people, senators? Why isn't anyone doing anything to help these children that are under bondage, under slavery, being heinously abused, told that they're adults in children's bodies? Why isn't anything being done about all of the sexual abuse of children in Scientology? Why isn't anything being done about the neglect of the children in Scientology? Why isn't anything being done about the physical abuse of Scientology children? Why isn't anything being done about the exploitation or trafficking of children in Scientology in Pinellas County, in Clearwater, Florida? Inquiring minds want to know.